This video is a compilation of 7 individual true crime videos based on articles that were published over the last several days. The first 4 videos are in regards to articles published on the 15th of August. The last 3 videos are in regards to articles published today, 19th of August. I'll read through each of the headlines and you'll see that on the screen. And then hopefully I'll have figured out how to add timestamps so you can skip ahead. If you do appreciate the coverage, please do like, comment, subscribe, share the video as you see fit. If you have any feedback for me, if you think I'm doing a good job, if I could do things slightly better this way, that way, let me know. I have a membership section. If you'd like to join, you'll be the first member if you do. And I also just want to remind you to step away, to stop watching should you become unsettled by the content. It's very dark. All of the topics are very, very grim. I've been particularly disturbed by a couple of them. So you don't have to sit here upsetting yourself. So if you do find that you're getting a little bit emotional, please just step away. You don't need to watch everything. Go and do something to clear your head, clear your spirit, invite some light into your life. I mean that with all sincerity. These topics really can bring us down. We do need to be very wary of our mental health, of our mood. Anyhow, please enjoy. And again, like, comment, subscribe, share the video as you see fit. The first video that I'll cover is in regards to a true crime article telling us about the Goon Squad, which is a pack of 6 rogue former Mississippi cops that plead guilty to torturing and abusing 2 black men. One of them was shot in the mouth. A very, very serious topic. A hate crime, absolutely, no question. And the media really should have paid a lot more attention to this subject. So that's the first video. The second is in regards to the murder of a 10-year-old girl. Her name's Sara Sharif. She was found dead in Woking, Surrey, England. Her father, her stepmother, and her uncle fled to Pakistan. She was found deceased in the family home, but the prime suspects, her father, the stepmother, and her uncle fled to Pakistan. Very disturbing topic. The third video is in regards to a true crime article in regards to the murder of a 10-year-old boy, his name Zion Staples, who was shot, killed, and stuffed in a trash can. His mother has been arrested. She has not been charged with murder, or she hasn't even been charged in relation to his death, but she is facing multiple felony charges in regards to the concealment of his body. He was stuffed in a trash can in the garage for 8 months. It's disgusting and it's worth a moment of your reflection. The fourth article is very disturbing. I need to give you a trigger warning. It's in regards to the barbaric R-ing, the SA, of a 29-year-old woman at her own apartment in Cherbourg in France. It's absolutely horrific. The woman is still in hospital. She's in a coma. I'm not sure if that's medically induced or not, but it's a terrible, terrible case and it's worthy of your attention. The fourth article is again very depressing. It's incredibly depressing, very dark. In regards to an 11-year-old girl, her name Maria Gonzalez, she too was odd and murdered. Police have a prime suspect, but he's disappeared. He's vanished. By the way, he's a Guatemalan migrant. I've not said illegal migrant. I've said migrant. Perhaps I should say illegal migrant because he crossed the border illegally. There's a touch of politics mentioned in that video. You may or may not agree with my political viewpoint, but regardless of that, it's a very disturbing topic, and again, it's just worth some consideration. You know, a short prayer, a moment of reflection. The sixth article is very disturbing. It's in regards to an Australian mother whose body was found decomposing in her own backyard and she was found being eaten by a dog. The case is a bit of a mystery. It's possible that she unlifed herself. It's possible that she was murdered. The New South Wales Police Force in Australia hasn't performed an adequate investigation at this point. The family is very disturbed. It's an interesting case. It's a tragedy, of course, and I hope further information and further progress does occur. The last video within this compilation is extremely disturbing. This one touched me in particular. For whatever reason, I've not shown graphic photos within the video. There are graphic photos which are on the article that I've gone through, a Breitbart article, but I've decided not to show them. But it's in regards to the Mexican cartel kidnapping 5 teens, seemingly killing all of them. We don't know that 100% for sure, but it seems extremely likely that all 5 were killed. We know that one of which was burnt in a car. We know that another was killed by his own friend, who was forced to beat, stab, and kill in a horrific manner his own friend. It's absolutely terrible. So those are the articles that I've covered over the last few days. I hope to make more videos. I hope to do these reviews at least a couple of times a week. Not quite sure how the best way to do this is. I'll figure it out, and I'll try to figure out the timestamps. If you do appreciate the coverage, please do like, comment, subscribe. As I say, more than welcome any of your feedback. Take care. 6 former Mississippi law enforcement officers, cops essentially, have pleaded guilty to charges accusing them of torturing and abusing 2 black men during a raid. So that's 6 Mississippi law enforcement officers have pled guilty to torturing and abusing 2 black men. So the 2 victims are called Michael Corey Jenkins and Eddie Terrell Parker. An assault took place January 24th of 2023 with 6 former officers involved, and these 6 officers called themselves the Goon Squad. Why did they call themselves the Goon Squad? Well, because they were acting in a rogue capacity. They were using excessive force and then trying to cover it up. And they were doing that purposefully. They'd even had made some coins. Each of them had a coin emblazoned with the name Goon Squad. So we can read out the names of the 6 Mississippi law enforcement officers, or rather former law enforcement officers. So their names are Lieutenant Jeffrey Middleton, who is the ringleader of the Goon Squad. The other former law enforcement officers are Christian Dedman, Hunter Elwood, Brett McAlpin, Daniel Opdyke, and Joshua Hartfield. And they've all been charged in relation to the assault of the 2 victims, Michael Corey Jenkins and Eddie Terrell Parker, and they've all pleaded guilty. Now, given that they've pled guilty, they're facing a maximum combined sentence of 641 years, as well as 2 life sentences. In addition to that, they're facing a combined $12 million in fines. Actually, more than 12 million, $12.25 million in fines. So there's 6 of them. They face up to 641 years in jail between them. So that's give or take 108 years each, as well as having to pay $2 million in fines. I doubt they will be paying $2 million in fines each. I doubt they will serve 108 years in jail each, but certainly they look like they're going to be locked up, banged away, incarcerated for a considerable amount of time. So we can tell you a little bit about the assault in question. It happened January the 24th. A white neighbor complained that 2 black men were in a house with a white woman. Apparently that's what the complaint was. I mean, can you make a complaint like that? Oh, hi police, there's 2 black men and they're in a house with a white woman in it. I mean, what, that constitutes making a police complaint? Alerting the police for that? Apparently so. Apparently this neighbor was highly concerned that 2 black men were in a house with a white woman in it. That could only mean they were up to no good, of course. Turns out that one of the 2 victims, Eddie Parker, was assisting a 15-year-old disabled girl in the home. So he was a caregiver. So as far as we understand, one of the officers kicked in the door, the others piled in, and a series of attacks occurred on both of the victims. The Goon Squad, again, this squad of 6 rogue former police officers, former law enforcement officers from Mississippi, brought with them a number of tools, a number of utensils, which included sex toys, firearms, stun guns, milk, eggs, alcohol, and chocolate syrup. So an array of different utensils and weapons were brought for the intention of being used to torture the 2 black men that happened to be in a house with a white woman in it. Those victims, again, Michael Corey Jenkins and Eddie Terrell Parker. So essentially the Goon Squad were under the impression that the 2 victims were potentially performing a home invasion on the property in question. That turns out not to be the case. So they broke in the door with their array of utensils and weapons. They did this without a warrant. They asked if the 2 victims had drugs. The 2 victims said no, they don't have any drugs, officers. So one of the officers shot a bullet into the wall, demanding that they confess. So using dirty tactics, really, threatening, intimidating, to try to elicit a false confession. Apparently the torture session went on for 90 minutes. It included a litany of racial slurs against the 2 black men. The officers threatened to R one of the victims with a dildo, with a sex toy. So they brought a sex toy, a dildo. They slapped the 2 victims with with the dildo and threatened to use it to R them, or at least one of them. The two victims were forced to strip naked and they were forced to shower. Why would they force them to shower? Well, just to get rid of any evidence. So we're told that chocolate syrup was used, eggs was used, so, to wipe them down, I guess. Both of the men were beaten with various objects around the home: a piece of wood, a kitchen utensil, a metal sword. They were also tasered repeatedly, electric shocked. And things get even worse. So we're told that one of the officers removed a bullet from the chamber of his service pistol, put it into the mouth of one of the victims, Michael Jenkins, and then fired. Can you imagine that? Michael Jenkins shot in the mouth by a member of the Goon squad. Shot in the mouth. So a bullet pierced his tongue and his jaw. Arguably, it gets even worse. The officers then plotted a cover-up, planting drugs and a gun. One of the officers said that they had meth, which they found in the home. The Goon squad leader planted a gun in their home. So this is just craziness. Further to that, the leader of the Goon squad threatened to kill the other members if they were to say anything. If any of them were to rat each other out, the lieutenant would kill them. That was literally caught on camera. So of course an investigation was launched. Seemingly the officers initially denied any wrongdoing, but at a certain point the Goon squad cracked. Eventually all of the officers confessed to the conspiracy, so now they're facing certain jail time. We're told that the victim, Michael Jenkins, that was shot in the mouth, still has difficulty speaking. The gunshot lacerated his tongue and broke his jaw before exiting behind his ear. So that's a shocking injury to have sustained, life-changing, but thankfully he is alive. That's pretty much all the information that we have at this point. It is shocking. Have you heard much about this case? I haven't. I've seen a couple of articles, both from the Daily Mail, but I would have thought that this would be a major story. This is absolutely heinous. The officers in question have pleaded guilty. I think it's fair to describe this as a hate crime. That would be my guess. The article doesn't really mention that, but we're told that the officers used racial slurs against the two victims throughout the 90-minute torture session. They had no good reason to invade the home. They were told that there were two black men in a home where a white woman was. That's what they had to go on. They put two and two together and decided that they were likely home invaders. They weren't. One of the victims was assisting a 15-year-old disabled girl that lived in the home. He was a caregiver. So this was a completely unjustified attack and a completely heinous attack and completely pre-planned. Again, these six scumbags knew what they were doing. They had no right to be there. There was no warrant. They took a litany of utensils, a litany of weapons, a stun gun, which they used multiple times on both victims, a sex toy, a dildo, which they threatened to R at least one of the victims with. They humiliated them, forced them to strip naked to have a shower to get rid of the evidence. They put a gun in the mouth of one of the victims and they pulled the effing trigger. They shot the man in the mouth. He still hasn't recovered. He has trouble speaking to this day. I am a little bit confused about the potential sentencing. One part of the article says combined up to 641 years and 2 life sentences. Another part of the article says between 5 to 15 years each. So I'm a little bit confused by that. But these guys, I would think they deserve potentially life in prison. The officer, the former officer that pulled the trigger, I would give him life for sure. The other officers certainly deserve decades in jail. This is one incident that we know of. How many other incidences like this did they commit? How many other innocent people did they abuse, torture, shoot, set up? That's another thing that these guys did. They tried to set these guys up. They planted a gun. They planted meth. Try to make out that they're drug dealers or whatever. Thankfully, they ratted each other out. Thankfully, although not in the first instance, but they did confess to their involvement, to their actions. But that was after footage was found of the leader, Lieutenant Jeffrey Middleton, the leader of the Goon squad, these 6 rogue former Mississippi law enforcement officers, scumbags, every last one of them. The leader was caught on camera threatening to kill the others. If any of you guys rat out, if any of you guys tell anybody, I'm gonna kill you. That was caught on camera. So these guys didn't really have any option other than to plead guilty, in my opinion. I don't know what I'm talking talking about, by the way. I presume they pled guilty because they thought that would be their best opportunity to get a lighter prison sentence. Don't know if that's going to work out for them or not. So we are told that there's going to be an attempt to fine the 6 scumbags up to $12 million. I mean, I presume that's not a realistic number. I presume these officers aren't going to be able to come up with a significant amount of money, would be my guess. But I do hope that the 2 victims do get compensated, particularly the one that is still suffering, having been shot in the mouth, through the jaw, through the tongue. It's very concerning, and I am questioning why this isn't all over the media. George Floyd shook the world. I'm not going to go into details about my opinions on the George Floyd situation, but to me, this is a much, much, much more heinous situation. Like 1,000 times more heinous. I mean, these guys have admitted their guilt. They've been caught on camera. They literally pre-planned this torture session, as well as presumably other torture sessions before, try to set up these 2 innocent men, shot one of them. This is reality. To me, this is a real crime with real victims. The George Floyd situation, a lot of you won't like my opinion on it. I mean, I'll hint at it, and you can unsub if you really feel the need to, but George Floyd, correct me if I'm wrong, it's been a while, but I'm quite sure he had fentanyl in his system. If I recall correctly, and perhaps I don't, he had 5 times a lethal dosage of fentanyl in his system. I don't know. I didn't pay too much attention to the whole George Floyd legal processes. I paid a little bit of attention, but I didn't feel the need to. We were told he had fentanyl in his system. I think it was a 5 times lethal dose, or higher than a normal lethal dose. We saw on camera George Floyd saying, "I can't breathe," even before he got out of the vehicle. I mean, if I was to question how he died from myself as a layman, I'd think, oh, well, maybe the 5-time lethal dosage of fentanyl had something to do with it. You know, maybe. Some of you will find that offensive for me to have an opinion that you disagree with, but there we go. But in this situation, this is something these guys have pled guilty to. We know that the victim was shot in the mouth. George Floyd, the officer, Derek Chauvin, was using his knee, arguably on George Floyd's neck, arguably on George Floyd's shoulder. But these are standard practices we've seen before and after across the world. Officers use the same tactic to apprehend those that don't comply. You know, that's what officers do. That's what they're trained to do. That's what their job is to do. It's not nice to look at. It wouldn't be pleasant to have someone's knee on your neck or your shoulder or your back or wherever, but that's how law enforcement officers operate legally by doing such things. And the media blew up that situation worldwide for absolute months, to the point that it changed society. You had multiple cities on fire in your peaceful protests, and those peaceful protests rippled throughout the world. You know, I mean, they had protests in Australia, in England, in various parts of Europe about George Floyd. I mean, what the F has the George Floyd situation got to do with Australia or Europe? You know, it's the media that made a massive hoo-ha about the George Floyd situation. Of course, how many memorials are there about George Floyd? Hundreds, perhaps. Major sculptures by major artists. Do I have a bee in my bonnet about George Floyd? Yeah, maybe I do. Maybe because I'm aware of his criminal history. Maybe I'm aware that he put a gun to the belly of a pregnant woman. Okay, use your fact checker and it will say, oh, that's false. And then it will tell you that it's not false. I've gone on a tangent, I've gone on a ramble, but I really am questioning, why isn't this subject, why isn't this crime discussed in the media? This is a real opportunity for civil rights activists and such to call into question the actions of the police force. I don't know why they're not doing that. It doesn't make sense to me. They keep picking these crappy examples, the civil rights activism, BLM. They're going to lionize George Floyd, who had fentanyl in his system, who's got a criminal history. Why aren't they making a hoo-ha about this situation? I don't get it. I think this situation deserves to have a hoo-ha made about it. Are these the only rotten apples in the Mississippi law enforcement department? I would presume not. So I would think that there would be a very big call to have a lot of media attention and a very, very thorough investigation in regards to the various law enforcement departments within Mississippi, to try to identify the depths of bad practices, of corruption, corruption of racism within the force? Are there other goon squads? Are there other rogue officers? I would think it would need to be looked into, and I would think that the media has a responsibility to draw attention to this subject more so than it has done, and it boggles my mind. I really don't get it. Why blow up the George Floyd situation? And I mean, there are other people that whose lives have been taken, and that becomes a massive media hoo-ha. Turns out that there were criminals and shooting at the police and things like this. I don't know. I don't get it. Anyway, I've gone on too much of a ramble. I'm starting to be a little bit incoherent at this point, so I'll wrap things up. If you appreciate the coverage, please do like, comment, subscribe, share the video as you see fit. Take care. At around 2:50 a.m. August the 10th, police attended a home in Woking, Surrey, England, and tragically they discovered the body of 10-year-old Sara Sharif. Why were the police there? Why did they go to the home? Well, because they had received a phone call which was made from overseas, from Pakistan. That phone call was made by Sara's own father. That scumbag's name, Irfan Sharif. And the father essentially said to the police officers that he was in Pakistan and that if they attend their family home, they will find the body of 10-year-old Sara Sharif. The father had fled the day before contacting the police. He had fled England. He had flown to his native home, if I use the right term, of Pakistan. And he didn't travel alone. He fled with his partner, his girlfriend, her name Banash Batul. He also fled to Pakistan with his brother, his name Faisal Malik. In addition to that, they were traveling with 5 children aged between 1 year of age and 13 years of age. An investigation was obviously launched. A post-mortem examination has taken place. We're told that the cause of death for Sara Sharif has not been confirmed. The post-mortem examination was not able to confirm the cause of death. However, the post-mortem examination has concluded that 10-year-old Sara Sharif had suffered multiple and extensive injuries, which are likely to have been caused over a sustained and extended period of time. Multiple and extensive injuries sustained over an extended period of time. So what does that mean? It almost certainly means that tragically 10-year-old Sara Sharif was regularly beaten. And on or around August the 9th, it seems that tragically Sara Sharif was beaten to death. The prime suspects are clearly those that have fled to Pakistan. Sara's own father, her stepmother, and her uncle. We don't know too many details about the actual death, but again, we are told that Sara Sharif is believed to have suffered ongoing physical abuse at the hands of, we can't say for sure, but seemingly it's at least one of, if not the 3 adults that fled England to go to Pakistan. Okay, we have a little bit of bad news, and that is there's no extradition order between Pakistan and England. So what I believe that means is that if authorities do catch the 3 prime suspects, there may be some legal difficulties in, whatever the correct term is, extraditing them from Pakistan to England to face justice. There could be some legal issues in regards to that. Some good news is that, as far as I understand, police authorities in Pakistan are actively searching for the 3 suspects. They seem very confident that they will find them. They've mentioned Islamabad and a city called Jhelum. They believe in particular Sara's uncle, her father's brother, is likely in Jhelum. Pakistan authorities have performed a number of raids on properties that they feel the suspects may be residing in. So to me, that's comforting, and I would imagine it's comforting for family and friends of the victim, Sara Sharif, to know that both the England and Pakistan authorities are actively seeking the 3 suspects. International organizations are involved, Interpol among them. So we do hope that the 3 suspects are found, interrogated, and ultimately face justice, really at the hands of the England judicial system. Unless Pakistan do public hangings, I'm not sure if they do. That's pretty much all the information that we have at this point. It's an absolute tragedy. It's rocked the community. A quiet village of Horsell near Woking in Surrey, England. It's believed the family home had a number of children there. The father was a taxi driver, seemingly well-to-do, quite well known in the area, but now he's a prime suspect in the murder of his own daughter. I'm going to wrap things up at this point. If you appreciate the coverage, please do like, comment, subscribe, share the video as you see fit, and take care. Zion Staples, a 10-year-old boy found dead and stuffed in a trash can inside of his mother's Illinois garage, died from a gunshot wound, a county coroner has confirmed. The boy's mother, her name Sushi Staples, 37 years of age, has been arrested. She's in detention on a $500,000 bond. She's been charged with multiple felony counts, including obstructing justice, failure to report the death of a child under the age of 13, and concealment of death. You will notice that the mother nor anybody else has yet to be charged with murder. So the mother has been charged with failure to report the death and concealment of death. Her son, 10-year-old Zion Staples, found stuffed in a trash can, kept in a corner of her garage in Illinois. The mother, I have to say, in my opinion, is fully knowledgeable that her son was killed, or certainly died, from a gunshot wound, and then housed in a trash can in her garage. She needs to be locked away for those reasons alone. The investigation, of course, is still undergoing, and we do hope that the police are able to get more information to be confident to make charges against the correct party. So my guess would be that the mother is guilty, not only of the charges laid against her so far, but also of murdering her own son, Zion Staples, 10 years of age. But that is a guess. We don't know that for sure. It's possible that somebody else had shot and killed her son, and she was a party to the concealment of his death. So not necessarily guilty of the actual shooting. That's possible. It's even possible, I hate to mention this, but it's possible that the gunshot wound was self-inflicted, perhaps accidental, perhaps purposeful. We don't know at this point. But what we do know is that it has been confirmed from the county coroner that Zion Staples, 10 years of age, from Illinois, did die from a gunshot wound. Further tests have been made. There's a toxicology report which has been worked on, hasn't been released. That takes some time to come to completion. So certainly more developments will come out, and we do hope that the investigation continues unimpeded and that charges are laid against the guilty party in regards to the death of Zion Staples. Again, at this point, the mother's been arrested. She's been charged with multiple felony counts, notably failure to report the death of a child and concealment of death, but she hasn't been charged with murder at this point. How did police find the body? Well, this happened because a neighbor called the police to make a welfare check. Police attended the property and they made the grim discovery. Again, Zion's body stuffed in a garbage can, a trash can, kept in a corner of the garage. It's believed that he was there for at least 8 months. His body was found in July 2023. It's believed that he was shot and killed December 2022. Shortly after the discovery, the mother, again her name Susie Staples, was arrested. And what was her immediate reaction? Her immediate reaction was to claim that she didn't even have a son. Oh, that's not my son. When investigators pointed to the birth certificate, which clearly proves that she's the mother, oh no, that birth certificate's a fake. So isn't that quite a bizarre response to make? The mother denies that she is the mother of Zion Staples. I say bizarre because it's just so bizarre and so easily disprovable. So why did she claim that? Is that indicative of mental health issues? Or is it just a ruse? Is she trying to make out that she has mental health issues? Again, we don't know the full details at this point, so we do hope that the investigation continues and makes further progress such that the guilty parties do face justice. For that to happen, charges in regards to Zion's death are going to need to be laid against somebody. We can presume that the chances are that the mother is guilty of having killed her son. We don't know that to be the case. It's possible that somebody else shot and killed Zion Staples. I'm going to mention this. You may not like it, but there were other children, I believe up to the age of 20, well, you know, other children and young adults that also lived in the home. Is it possible that one of the other children had shot and killed Zion Staples? I guess that is possible. We don't know. We do know that the investigation is continuing, and I believe I'm right in saying that the other children have been removed from the home. They are in care, and frankly, that's not such a bad thing. So I will comment that it's been said that the neighbor that made the call for the police to do a welfare check on the home had actually made contact with the police on several occasions. The neighbor had previously reported that they believed to have witnessed one of the children in the home to have been tied, bounded. Police investigated at that point. That could have been months ago, perhaps more than a year ago. Police investigated but declared that no such incident occurred. No action was taken against the mother nor anybody else. But thankfully, the neighbor continued to keep an eye on that family home and continued to make multiple requests for welfare checks. And it really was that neighbor's intervention that led to the discovery of Zion's body. So we have to applaud that neighbor for their persistence in contacting the police. And I would say that there's perhaps cause, not necessarily, but perhaps cause to investigate the police's actions, their previous responses to the welfare check requests. If it is found that Zion, or perhaps even the other children, faced ongoing abuse of various kinds at the hands of the mother, Susie Staples, or anybody else, which I would say seems to perhaps be likely at this point, then perhaps it's fair to say or suggest that the police could have identified that earlier and could have taken action earlier. If action was taken earlier, perhaps that would have saved the life of Zeon Staples. That's really all the information that we have. So again, the mother has been charged on multiple felony accounts, but not in regards to the murder or even the shooting of her son at this point. No one else has been charged directly in relation to the death of Zeon Staples, but the mother's been held on a $500,000 bond. That indicates to me that the investigators do suspect her of being heavily involved in regards to the death of her 10-year-old son. Even if she wasn't the shooter, even if the death was accidental, she certainly seems to me to be guilty of having purposefully concealed her son's death and having done so in such a horrific way, having stuffed his body in a trash can, left it to, pardon me, rot, left it to literally decompose for more than 8 months. That is disgusting. So even if she's not guilty of having killed her son, she needs to be locked up for a very, very long time. I'm going to wrap things up at this point. If you appreciate the coverage, please do like, comment, subscribe, share the video, and take care. An artist who has left a 29-year-old woman fighting for her life after he AR'd her several times, sometimes with a 29-inch long broomstick, was also once accused of SAing his younger sister. In a sickening case that has sent shockwaves throughout France, Umar N broke into the woman's home in the northwestern city of Cherbourg, grabbed her by the neck and hit her repeatedly in the face and across her body. The horrified woman was thrown across the room and AR'd several times by the scumbag attacker, who also used a broomstick to both SA and torture her. This sick, barbaric attack has left the victim with horrific injuries, including a perforated colon, small intestine, and diaphragm, as well as fractured ribs. It's now emerged that this scumbag, his name again, Umar N, presumably, we're not told his full last name, for his security. Oh, he gets protected. Oh, wasn't that nice? Well, it's emerged that the scumbag is already under investigation for SAing his 12-year-old sister. And apparently that SA attack or attacks happened last year. It's also emerged that this scumbag has previously been sentenced 5 times by the juvenile courts for violence and damaging properties. Apparently he's 18 years old at this point, and he was previously accused of R'ing a minor in 2019 at a boarding school, but the case was dismissed by the prosecution on the grounds of insufficient evidence. I'm going to say what an absolute shame, and I know that that's not strong enough. What a travesty. Of course, I'm speculating when I say that it seems to me the now 18-year-old, who presumably would have been 14 back in 2019, I'm thinking that he probably was guilty. I don't know that for sure, of course, but he was accused of R'ing a minor in 2019 at a boarding school. I presume he would have been 14 years old at that point. The case was dismissed because of lack of evidence, but I would think that at this point, if he's that barbaric, that sick, that psychopathic to allegedly R a 29-year-old woman in her own home, if I understand correctly, in Cherbourg, North France, beat her and used a broomstick both to torture her and to SA her, subsequently causing massive injuries to this young woman, fractured ribs, perforated colon, small intestine, and diaphragm, and all of the psychological trauma that's caused by being subjected to such an horrific and disgusting, vile, barbaric attack. So apparently he R'd somebody in 2019 and allegedly he SA'd his own 12-year-old sister last year. That incident, that attack, is currently under investigation. I don't know, man. My judgment could be wrong, of course, merely an opinion, merely speculation, but my judgment is this sick CUNT is 100% guilty of everything he's been accused of. People don't go around accusing people for no good reason. Why would a 12-year-old girl suddenly claim that she was SA'd by her older brother, unless there was truth to the subject? We're told that the attack on the 29-year-old woman occurred at her own home in Cherbourg on August the 4th. The personal details of the victim, of course, are being kept anonymous, but we're told that she was left naked and in a bloody mess on the floor of her apartment. She was able to reach a telephone. She was able to call medics. She was rushed to hospital in Cherbourg. We're told that she's still in a coma. That's incredible. I'm wondering if it was medically induced. And we're told that she's fighting for her life 11 days after she was operated on due to her extensive injuries, and the operations went on for several hours. The investigators are shocked. They have never seen so much barbarity. Yes, this is absolutely barbaric. And of course, I've got to say full condolences, obviously, to the victim. Let's hope and pray she does make a full recovery and that she receives all of the treatment that she's going to need moving ahead. Medical treatment, but also psychological treatment, no doubt, I would think. And of course, she's going to need the love and support of her family, her friends, her colleagues, her employers, this kind of thing. Hopefully her anonymity is maintained if that's what she chooses. Perhaps she doesn't. A lot of victims choose to publicly discuss their attacks for the benefit of wider society, to increase awareness, to remind us that these sick events do happen. And as we're told here, this was a particularly barbaric attack by someone who, frankly, is a psychopathic scumbag, serial arrest in my estimation. We're told that the scumbag suspect, Umar, was arrested at his mother's home a few days after the attack. The 18-year-old's phone geolocated his proximity as being that of the victim's apartment, so there seemingly is ample evidence to charge this scumbag, to seek justice. And of course, I do hope and pray that the victim's able to recover from her coma. Again, she's currently in a coma, and able to strengthen the evidence. Perhaps more weight can be given to the allegations made against this scumbag by his 12-year-old sister. There's an investigation in regards to the alleged essay of his 12-year-old sister. So hopefully these allegations strengthen that investigation, and perhaps, I'm just guessing here, but perhaps there's cause to revisit the previous R allegation, which occurred in 2019, at which point I believe he would have been 14 years old. He's accused of having R-ing, I believe, a student at boarding school. The charges were dismissed due to a lack of evidence, but perhaps this sick attack will change that. Maybe it doesn't. I really don't know. We're told that when investigators were interrogating this scumbag, he denied the attack. He showed no remorse, no emotion, but then the investigators presented their evidence, or at least part of their evidence. The victim was able to tell police officers that she had seen the prime suspect in Cherbourg prior to the attack, had seen him. She didn't know him, but she had seen him in some capacity. Again, she's now in a coma, so I'm wondering if she's in a medically induced coma. I guess I'm hoping that she is. I'm guessing that if she is in a medically induced coma, that the doctors felt that that's the right thing to do. That's really all the information that we have at this point. I'm going to wrap things up. It is disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting, and it's such a shame that these things happen. The only thing that we know about the attacker is his first name. The fact that he's currently under investigation in regards to the SA of his 12-year-old sister, and also that he was charged with R back in 2019 when he was 14, perhaps 15 years old. That's all we know. Certainly from this article, we've not been provided with a photo of the scumbag in question. We're not told what he does for a living or anything like this. I'll tell you what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if he's a citizen of France, or if he's a refugee, if he's an immigrant. Has he been welcomed into the country and then betrayed the country by performing this hideous act, or actually potentially multiple hideous acts? I don't know. Maybe he is a citizen. I really don't know. Might even delete that part out. So I'm going to wrap things up here again. Best wishes, thoughts and prayers for the victim. Let's hope she makes a full recovery and gets the support that she's going to need moving forward. Let's hope justice is served, that this animal, this absolute sick cunt, is locked up for decades. I presume there won't be a life sentence for this act. I would argue that there ought to be, but I really do hope that justice is served. And once this scumbag is incarcerated, let's hope that his fellow inmates, as well as the guards, have plenty of opportunity to have nice little cozy chats with him. Talk to him about what he allegedly did to his 12-year-old sister. Talk to him about him being charged with R in 2019 when he was only 14 or 15 years old. And mostly talk to him and express their anger, their feelings in regards to his barbaric attack on a 29-year-old woman who's still currently in a coma. Gonna wrap things up. If you appreciate the coverage, please do like, comment, subscribe, share the video, and take care. 11-year-old Maria Gonzalez's body was found by her father at their home in Pasadena, Texas, Saturday, August the 12th. Maria's father returned home from work and shockingly discovered his daughter's body underneath her bed. Tragically, Maria had been SA'd and murdered. We're told that the police have a prime suspect. The scumbag's name, Juan Carlos Garcia-Rodriguez, a Guatemalan immigrant who entered into the United States in January 2023. Police have said that he left some evidence at the scene, notably a key that was left behind. It turns out that the alleged scumbag Juan Carlos Garcia-Rodriguez that SA'd and murdered Maria Gonzalez, 11 years of age, lived in the same apartment complex as Maria and her father. Seemingly, the scumbag had been living in the apartment complex just for the last several weeks. He was last seen at the complex 2 days after Maria's murder. Again, the scumbag alleged murderer, the scumbag prime suspect, is believed to have entered the United States in January. He crossed the border in El Paso, Texas. He self-surrendered, presumably to ICE or border control, and then he was let free. That's what you guys do in America at this moment in time. You decided that a wall wasn't a good idea. Much better to let people come across illegally into the United States. Doesn't matter who they are, you don't need to know. Doesn't matter what their background is. Doesn't matter if they're going to be a contributing member to society. Doesn't matter if they're a member of the cartel, if they're a sicko of one kind or another. Turns out this guy, Juan Carlos Garcia-Rodriguez, 18 years of age, 17 when he crossed your so-called border in El Paso. What is it? I mean, is it even painted? Like, is it just like a painted line on the ground or something? It's not even, is it? I mean, it's just anyone and everyone can just come in, walk right in. You have failed to protect your country, Kamala, and I've got to say that this would be a prime example of that. I'll say this, a lot of you won't like it. This is the kind of thing that Trump was talking about. This is one of the aspects as to why he was so insistent on having a wall protecting your borders, because there is the risk that you have mongrels and scumbags come in to your country and do harm. And that's what's happened here. I don't wish to get overly political, but I mean, this is just staring us right in the face. 11 years of age, SA'd and murdered, stuffed under her bed. Her father comes home from work and that's what he finds. Of course, full condolences to Maria's family and friends, notably her father. So to be clear, the prime suspect is not in custody. We don't know where he is. Detectives have released a photo of him, and they also are offering a $5,000 reward for information leading to his arrest or charges. Gonna comment on that? I'm not an expert in these matters, but $5,000, why so low? I don't get it. Why so low? Maybe there's good reason for that. Maybe you don't want to offer it too high and attract too many people chasing the dollars but without any actual information. Maybe it's problematic when the rewards are too high a value, but I've got to say $5,000 is too low. That's what I'm thinking. We have a few more details. Maria's father had called police at around 3 p.m. August the 12th and told police that he had found his daughter's lifeless body under her bed. What kind of mental state would the father have been in? Just absolutely ripped apart emotionally. We're told that Maria's body was stuffed in a trash bag, and that trash bag was placed into a clothes hamper, which was then stuffed under the bed. Of course, paramedics arrived at the scene, whereupon Maria was pronounced dead at the scene. Initially, police had no suspects, but after searching the premises, they discovered a key. They've been able to identify that that key belongs to another apartment within the same complex. Didn't take them long to find out who lived at that apartment, and that is why Juan Carlos Garcia-Rodriguez, currently 18 years old, is the prime suspect. Believed to have SA'd and then murdered, and I'm going to say desecrated, the body of Maria Gonzalez, 11 years old. There's also DNA samples of the scumbag in question, so the police are pretty confident they got the right man. Well, they have the right suspect. It's now a matter of finding him. So where's he going to be? Well, perhaps he's run back to Guatemala. Perhaps he's a member of the cartel or a gang, or perhaps he's able to contact the gang or a cartel and become a member. I don't know. I'm kind of speculating here. But perhaps he has the means to be protected. Perhaps he doesn't. Maybe he's been killed. Who knows? We're told that Maria's official cause of death was ruled as asphyxiation due to strangulation, as well as blunt force head and neck trauma. She was beaten and strangled. An additional investigation determined that she had also been SA'd. I don't say the full term because YouTube doesn't like that. Law enforcement have said that there was no forced entry into the house, so it could be the case that the scumbag knocked on the door and perhaps Maria let him in, knowing that he was living in the area, living in the same apartment complex. perhaps she made a fatal mistake. So that's really all the information that we have at this point. Let's hope that this scumbag is found and is held to justice. Texas has the death penalty. If they do catch this scumbag, let's hope he gets extradited from Guatemala or wherever it is he happens to be, and that he faces real justice, which I would say is death penalty. I'm happy with that. I know a lot of people prefer life in jail so that they can suffer. I'm cool with that too, but I do want to see justice. Again, full condolences to all family and friends of the victim, 11-year-old Maria Gonzalez, an innocent girl at home, perhaps allowed in a wolf in sheep's clothing. An illegal immigrant that crossed the border, surrendered to authorities, and then authorities said, oh, that's okay. Oh, okay, fine. Well, you came over here illegally, but that's okay. You can live here. Who was paying his rent? Was that the taxpayers? Was that the United States taxpayers paying this scumbag's rent? I would imagine so. That's a guess. Could be wrong, but I would imagine so. In America, you have press conferences, press meetings. Can't remember what it's called. Have your press asked Kamala about this situation? She's in charge of the border, isn't she? Is she and others going to be held accountable for this situation, or is it just one of those things? Sorry, Carmelo Gonzalez, father of Maria Gonzalez. Your daughter was taken away from you. She was brutally killed, beaten around the head and neck, strangled to death after she had been SA'd. Your 11-year-old angel violated and murdered because Kamala, Biden, and your authorities have failed to protect your borders adequately. They've allowed people to walk over illegally, cross your borders, and then be released into greater society. There's no checks in regards to who they are, what they're capable of, what their criminal history is. I've got to say, I used to be a Trump supporter. I've stopped being a Trump supporter, but I have to say he's 100% right on this subject. You guys and any other nation needs to protect its borders, and a failure to do so is, in my mind, negligence. And your government, much the same as most other governments, has proven itself to be negligent time and time again in these incredibly important subjects. So I hope that Kamala, the rest of them, do face a little bit of pressure from this. I think they failed the father, Carmelo Gonzalez. They failed Maria, the victim. They failed society, and are not good at all. I'm going to wrap things up at this point. If you guys appreciate the coverage, please do like, comment, subscribe, share the video as you see fit, and take care. In March 2022, the decomposing body of LaSonia Dutton, 31 years of age, who had been missing for several days, was found just 4 meters away from her kitchen window at her family home in the remote town of Wilcannia in northwest New South Wales. Her body was found by her uncle, who was shocked to see LaSonia's decomposing body being eaten by a dog. Again, she was missing for several days, and she was found just 4 meters from the kitchen window of her family home. The article doesn't tell us how many people were living at the family home, but LaSonia's father has described the family home as being a local drop-in center, which is a casual term for saying that a lot of people in the local community would pop in, say hello, have a cup of tea, have a bit of a chinwag kind of thing. It was a social environment by all accounts. We're not told that LaSonia was living alone, but we are told that she was missing for several days. Her uncle discovered her body just 4 meters away from the kitchen window of the family home. Her body was decomposing and it was being eaten by a dog. What a horrific sight, what a horrific realization for the uncle. A police investigation was enacted and it was concluded that LaSonia died due to an unlifing. I'm not able to say the word that begins with S. YouTube doesn't like that word apparently. So the police ruled that LaSonia unlifed herself, and they concluded that largely on the basis that an electrical cord was found near her body. However, a coroner stated in an autopsy report that third-party involvement could not be ruled out. And further, the coroner stated that LaSonia's death is suspicious. So seemingly the coroner wasn't able to come to an absolute conclusion in regards to how exactly LaSonia died, but it does leave open the possibility that she was murdered. LaSonia's father, Keith Dutton, believes that LaSonia did not take her own life. LaSonia's father believes that she was murdered. Further, he's very unsatisfied with the police investigation given the coroner's report states that her death was suspicious and that third-party involvement could have been a possibility. LaSonia had 2 children. She was said to have loved life, and with that, her father struggles to believe that she decided to take her own life. The father also questions how it was possible for her body to remain outside of the family window in the backyard for several days. We're not told how many people lived in the home, but it was a family home. She had 2 children. We're not sure of the ages of the 2 children, but how didn't anybody identify her body sooner? Literally in the backyard, literally being eaten by a dog. We're not told if it's a family dog or a neighbor's dog. We're not given that information within this one article, which is a little bit light on details, but this does seem to be a very harrowing situation. LaSonia's father also points to the fact that he was told by neighbors that they saw 2 people attempting to enter LaSonia's home the night before her body was found. Why were 2 people trying to get into her home? Were they trying to break in? Were they trying to recover her body? We don't know. Is the neighbor telling the truth? Is the witness telling the truth? Were they correct in what they claimed to have seen? We don't know. Further to that, there were rumors that people saw LaSonia being assaulted on the Friday night that she was last seen, and a bloodied knife was found at the local oval. Again, we're not provided any solid details there. If a bloodied knife was found at the local oval, was that in any way related to this case? We don't know. The article isn't giving us a great deal of information. I'm not sure why. It's a bit confusing, to be honest. The autopsy certainly would be able to establish whether or not LaSonia had been stabbed, but there's no mention of that within this article. So it is a mystery. The article's not giving us enough to really come to any real conclusions, but we do know that the father and other family members are extremely unhappy and essentially do not agree with the New South Wales police investigation conclusions that LaSonia unlifed herself. The New South Wales Coroner's Court agrees. They've taken over the investigation from the police. I didn't know that was a thing, but the New South Wales Coroner's Court has essentially said, you know what, police, we're not satisfied with your investigation. The family is not satisfied with your investigation. It is possible that LaSonia faced foul play. It is possible that she was murdered, and the New South Wales Coroner's Court seemingly do not accept that the police have performed an adequate investigation at this point, so they're taken over. Based on the scant information within this article and based on the disturbing nature of the subject, my feeling is that I applaud that. It seems that there is some cause to investigate further. The coroner's report claims that LaSonia's death was suspicious. Her body was found a few meters away from the kitchen window of the family home. We're presuming that at least 2 children were living in the family home. That's a guess. I don't know. I'm guessing that people lived in the family home other than LaSonia. They would have had neighbors. The smell of a decomposing body so close to the kitchen window in the backyard. I mean, that's just going to be too much to miss. She was missing for several days. Presumably, even if she wasn't reported as being missing to the police, presumably her family, her friends would have checked the home and the surrounding areas, and that's going to include the backyard. That's going to include just outside of the kitchen window. So why did it take several days for the uncle to discover LaSonia's body in the state that he did find it, decomposing and being eaten by a dog? Again, we don't know where the dog has come from. If it's a stray dog, if it's a family dog, if it's the neighbor's dog, we don't know. It's a terrible situation. I'm going to say full condolences to the family and friends of LaSonia Dutton. Perhaps she did unlife herself. Perhaps she was murdered. We really don't know. But we do want an adequate investigation to be performed. And seemingly the New South Wales Coroner's Court believe that that has not been the case so far. So hopefully that is rectified. Hopefully the Coroner's Court is able to come to a more firm conclusion in regards to LaSonia's death. If it is found that she is likely to have unlifed herself, well then hopefully that serves as some comfort or certainly closure to her family and friends. And if the New South Wales Coroner's Court find that it is likely that foul play resulted in her death, then let's hope the investigation is able to pursue, track down and find and trial the culprit or culprits. But that's all the information we have, so I'm going to wrap things up at this point. If you appreciate the coverage, please do like, comment, subscribe, share the video as you see fit, and take care. A group of cartel gunmen kidnapped 5 teenagers in the state of Jalisco and forced at least one of them to beat, stab, and kill one of his friends for sport. Just for the fun of it, the cartel gunmen forced one of the kidnapped teenagers to stab and kill, cut the throat of of one of their friends. That's how sick these cartel gunmen are. They did it for the fun of it. The case began last week when relatives reported that 5 teenagers had gone missing after meeting up in an area that overlooks the city known as El Mirador in the city of Lagos de Moreno. The following day, authorities found a car belonging to one of the victims. Authorities also found zip ties and blood in the area where the teens had gathered. A second vehicle belonging to one of the other victims was found. That vehicle had been set on fire. Once firefighters had put the flames out, tragically, they found human remains that belonged to one of the victims. Since then, cartel gunmen leaked a photograph on social media that showed 5 young men that had been tied up and tortured. The photo is on the Breitbart article, but in all honesty, I'm not going to post it in the video. Given what we know what happened to these boys, I don't think it's the right thing to post the photo. I think YouTube might be upset about that, and perhaps rightfully so. In the photo, we can see the 5 teenage boys, all with their hands tied behind their backs, all with duct tape across their mouths, each with very bloodied eyes. Perhaps one in particular, one of the teens in particular. They're clearly fearful for their lives. It's a harrowing picture, and given what we know, it's best that I don't post the photo on the video. Again, if you want to find that, you'll find it on the internet, but it's certainly on Breitbart.com, and I can imagine more footage, more pictures and video footage will be out there on the internet if you go looking for it. I'm not going to. We're told that the cartel gunman also leaked a video that showed one of the teens being forced to beat one of his friends with a rock, and then that teen had to stab him, his friend, and had to slash his throat. I've seen another article headline stating that the teen was forced to decapitate his friend. This article doesn't use the term decapitate, it says slash his throat. We see in a still image on the Breitbart article of one teen attacking his friend. I gotta say, full condolences to all family and friends of all of the victims. The article doesn't tell us that all 5 of the teens have died. It tells us that one body was found in a burnt out car, and there's a leaked video showing one of the teens being forced to murder and slash the throat, potentially even decapitate his own friend. So at least 2 of the 5 teens are dead. It seems inevitable that all 5 of them are, tragically. The investigating officers have showed the leaked video and the photographs to the families, and the families have claimed that they believe their loved ones were the ones that are in the photos and the videos. So, I mean, I won't say that's a blessing, but I guess it's a positive to a degree that at least the families have been able to identify their loved ones, and at least perhaps they have some level of closure knowing what's happened to them. But what an awful closure to have. We're not given too much more information, but we are told that when journalists tried to ask the president of Mexico, his name Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, when journalists tried to ask him about the case, he ignored the question, he made a joke, and then he walked away. That's the response from the president of Mexico in relation to the presumed murder of 5 Mexican teenagers. Just out to have some fun, and seemingly they encountered the cartel, and seemingly the cartel took it upon themselves to torture these boys in such a horrific way. Why? For what? For what? Why torture them? I mean, why murder them? Perhaps there is some level of reasoning to murder them if the boys had stumbled across a drug factory or something like that. I'm just suggesting. I'm just spitballing. But you can imagine why a gang of criminals would want to kill witnesses to a nefarious act. But even if that's the case, why torture them? Why force one of the teens to beat one of his own friends with a rock, stab him, and slash his throat? In one of the pictures on Breitbart, I mentioned that we see all 5 of the teens bound and gagged, and one of them, his eyes are extremely bloody. That seems to be the boy that was beaten by his friend with a rock. I mean, it looks possible that he's had his eyes gouged out. The images are blurry and they're extremely disturbing. So I'm gonna wrap things up at this point. Hopefully I've said full condolences to all of the family and friends of all of the victims. I think some scrutiny ought to be applied to the president of Mexico. If this absolutely awful tragedy is worthy of a joke and worthy of being ignored, then you guys have got big problems. Well, you guys, either way, you guys do have big problems in Mexico. What's the answer to the cartel problem? I don't know. Is it just a matter of the drug industry, the narcotics industry? I kind of guess not, because you've got drug dealers across across the world. They don't go around doing these things, as far as I understand, not to innocent boys, not to a group of teenagers that aren't a part of the drug industry themselves. Perhaps I'm making an assumption there. Perhaps the boys were involved in nefarious activity. I doubt it, but it's possible. I feel a little sickened having gone through this thoroughly, and perhaps you do too. If that is the case, please take a break, go away, try to find something more enjoyable to do. Don't listen to any more videos of mine or of a true crime nature. Give yourself a mental break. And at that point, I'm going to wrap things up. If you do appreciate the coverage, please do like, comment, subscribe, share the video as you see fit, and take care.